I talk as a coach today a lot about relations, and I think the coaching gone a little bit away from relations. They gone a little bit more to PlayStation football, and I talk about relations because in the end, for me, coaches are there to help players and to set a game plan up. But in the end, it's always about players on the pitch. The players play the game, not the coach.
Welcome to the Fussball channel, and today the guest, I'm so honored that he's on our list of guests, because not only a great football player, also a great football manager, coach, and also a very good friend of mine. And hello, Uwe, how are you?
Hello, my friend, how are you?
I'm fine. We are recording this while the heat is in Europe, so we're always happy in Norway, as you know, and you've had a fantastic career, Uwe. I counted after the clubs. I couldn't believe that I met someone who had more clubs than me, but you played for 13 different clubs in different countries, and you've had success as a player, then turning into a successful coach in different countries. But Uwe, let's start with the beginning. You have your upbringing, and for young viewers, in East Germany, in DDR. And tell us, how did you become a footballer, and how early did they see that you were supposed to be a good footballer?
The entertainment level in the East was not very high, so there was not much to do. Of course, I come from a small village. My spare time I used entirely to playing football, to exercises. And since the age of 4 or 5, I've been every day on the pitch, started to organize, be part of organized training sessions, improved, and climb up the ladder through the scouting system in the East till I came to the privileged sports gymnasium, or we called it a sports school, elite school of sport, where a lot of different type of sports athletes from the very young ages lived together, learned together in school education program, but had everything designed around training. Amount of training was very high, and to optimize the upbringing of young athletes.
And how old were you at that time? Because you moved away from your parents then.
Yes, I went, like I said before, the regional ladders. I climbed up from a very small village like Starkenberg. Went then into a local training center where I participated 3 or 4 times a week, and then I got scouted by the big district area, Saxonia, and there was the main club was Lokomotiv Leipzig, and they had basically the first pick, the first choices on the most talented players. And in the age of 11, I left home. That was a dream. Today, a lot of people saying how you can do that, how your parents can let you go or give you away. And my parents didn't have a choice. So I really wanted to do that because it was a big privilege. Nobody in my region had ever achieved that. And to go to that school, and that was tough. There was a selection process, and every year 2 coming in, 2 going out, and especially in the growing phases in the puberty, some kids growing faster, some later, people getting injured. So there was a lot of challenges, a lot of pressure from a young age. But that formed me as a player, as a person, but now also as a coach.
Yeah, I wanted to say that, Uwe, because we, of course, talked about this privately before, and I've always seen you're one of the most disciplined, you're one of the most hardworking players I've seen, one of the most hardworking coaches I've seen. Is that a direct consequence of that period, or is it a direct consequence of your upbringing, or both?
I think a little bit of both. I think generation has changed. That is point 1. But I think in my case, is very much ingrained from a very young age. Also, my parents was very hardworking, and I like to work hard. I like to achieve things. I like to being ambitious, set the targets very high, and I'm fully aware that you not always can meet your targets, but the closer you come, the closer you be to success. And when you set your targets very high, then you ending up very often on the positive side. So that it's formed me as a player, but also as a coach. And I think I tell also my players is try to be the best version of yourself and try to achieve as much as you can achieve with the talent God have given you. And I can say honestly, as a player with my talent got given, I achieved the maximum. And I think that is the only thing you can ask from players today.
And to put this in the context, we are in the when you growing up, it's the end of the 80s. I remember because I went with Lillestrøm on training camp to East Germany, going through Checkpoint Charlie, and in 1989. The wall goes down. Your country, East Germany, DDR, stop existing, and it's like you're playing 5 games for a country that never existed, which is a good story in itself. But at that time, Uwe, in that transformation of being your country, then being a part of BRD, Bundesrepublik Deutschland, West Germany, as it was called, now Germany, that transformation for you as a person and a player, how did you do that? How challenging was that?
It was very challenging and very interesting. This is also why I written the book. So not a lot of people can say they lived over 20 years in a different political system and another 30 plus years in the free world. So I'm really happy and fortunate to experience both. And obviously, I was very, very fortunate that the peaceful revolution came when I was just hitting top form in my career. Put it that way. I had the best years ahead of me, a good career ahead of me, and then obviously had then the freedom to play wherever I wanted to play, and also being a professional and achieve some financial comfort for the years to come, for the rest of your life. And I think I spoke with a lot of players, top players in East Germany. They never had that opportunity because the revolution came too late. So, in one way I was very fortunate, and another way I was also find it really tough because you enter a completely different world. The competitiveness we had the same, but the politics of you have to pack out your elbows, you have to survive in a team, you have to look after yourself. That was far away from being this collective thinking. We doing it together. We are a team, and so the free world asks also for egoism, for looking after yourself in order to have a long and good career.
I want to recommend the book that you were alluding to, Knocking Walls Down. It's a very good book. I would recommend everybody to read that book. And to understand that for viewers and listeners is that in that period of time, East Germany had a great football culture, a bit underestimated, starting within '74 when East Germany beat West Germany at the World Cup, but still great players. And at that time, when your country fell down, there was Andreas Thom, Ulf Kirsten, Matthias Sammers. There were so many great players coming there. And Rainer Kallmund, who at that time was the sporting director or manager of Bayer Leverkusen, he was told, I think, I'm not sure if that is 100% verified, but Helmut Kohl, the Bundeskanzler of Germany, don't take all the good players, let someone else, because he got Kirsten and Thom, and they wouldn't let him do summer if that, I think, who went to Stuttgart. But was a great time, Uwe. But for you, when you came into what you call the free world, was then where did you want to go there, or how did they get in touch with you? Was it agent who got in touch with you? How did that work?
Yeah, obviously we were preparing on the days of the unification, and when the wall fell down, we were preparing for decisive World Cup qualifying game for Italy. We were leading the group. We had to go to Austria. We needed a draw to qualify for 1990 World Cup. I was the first time with the A team, and in that time we were in a training camp in Leipzig, and in Leipzig was the revolution on the street, and we were surrounded by Stasi, by army, but we also were surrounded by agents who already saw it coming, that big things will happen, and the completely focus for that decisive game in Vienna went away. We lost 3-0. Tony Polster scored a hat-trick, and but what happened was the agents on that trip to Austria got obviously into the players, and for us was we had no experience with this. We were like rabbits in the headlights, so we couldn't focus. We were thinking now dreams come true. Everyone was dreaming, oh, I can play in the Bundesliga now. What we always looked up to. I was always a big fan of English football. In the East German television, they broadcasted a lot about the European games, and at that time I find it very fascinating about the atmosphere and also the football on the British island. So my dream came later through to going to Manchester City, and this is where I probably would have my most satisfying career, football-wise, but also family-wise, where I met my wife, and my first son was born in Manchester, and and the rest is history then.
The rest is history, and it's a big part of the history, Mark, Uwe. That's why I dwell a bit about, because I think that, first of all, that is a definition of who you are, but it's also a definition of Europe. It's a definition of what we've all been a part of that seems to quick be forgotten. And when you talk about agents around your training camp in Leipzig, it's Stasi agent, it's football agent. It's an unbelievable time. But over to your football, Uwe, as you were saying, 13 clubs. But I will say, and I checked this just before we went on, because you came to Manchester City in 1994, and I played against Manchester City in 1994, but you just came after that time. Then I was at Swindon at that time. But the bond you kind of quick made with the Manchester City fans, that was amazing. From when you started at Manchester City, and you say you loved English football. So tell us how did you end up at City?
Especially for German.
Exactly.
In England, I mean, there was no history of German players in England. The Premier League was just formed. Before was Division 1. Now the Premier League was just formed, and I had a chance also to go to Middlesbrough at the time, but I went to Manchester City because I had a good feeling. Manchester City had a history with Bert Trautmann, a German who stayed after the war in Manchester, and got the legendary status there, not only Manchester, in whole England. And I felt there was a good place for me to be. I had a good feeling straight away, and I think it's a little bit about the character as a player and also as a person. Yeah, I'm always found it closer to East Germany, the culture in Britain, because the team was very much collectively looking after each other. They did a lot together. They always took me with. I couldn't speak any English. They always took me with for golf, for food, for dinner. They invited me home for a night out. They never left anyone on their own, and I really liked that. I really needed that, and I learned the language quick because I wanted to also demonstrate the commitment. I always think when you're going somewhere, you need to show to the people your commitment, that you're buying in, not only 100%, 1000%. You do the extra mile, the extra meters, and I think that's what I did. I got the acceptance in the group, and then the way I played, I think the playing against the back four suited me really well. In Germany at the time was a lot of man marking, what was much harder. When you had, for example, we played against Borussia Dortmund, you had Julius Caesar and Kohler als Mannmarkers, world-class Mannmarkers is very difficult. But when you're playing against the back four, when you be intelligent, having good movement, one movement for the defender, one movement for yourself, have good players around you, you can play you in and serving you in the right areas with the balls, then obviously things will happen for you. And I really adapted to that sort of football very fast, and with my commitment to the club, to the supporters, this formed this incredible relationship.
Talk us through the key players, the key persons at the club at Manchester City at this time.
When I came, the club was in trouble, was facing relegation, 12 games to go. And I came at the same time like Paul Walsh, very known player, former Tottenham, Liverpool player, played also for England. Peter Beagrie, outstanding winger, came from Everton. We came at the same time and tried to help the club. Niall Quinn got injured. This is why they got me in. Niall Quinn had a crucial ligament injury. Famous player for Ireland, but played many years in Arsenal and especially also Manchester City. And Steve McMahon, well-known player from Liverpool, who ended his career in Manchester City. Very experienced players teach me what to do in English football, how to behave. For example, your own teammates had to really go at you when I was diving and try to get penalties and try to get free kicks and try to get the minute of a breather because the game was much faster. So my own teammates teach me, you don't do that in England. You go up and play on. And I think things like this, I always try to select the people around me who I really listen to. And Steve McMahon was one of them because of what he achieved and the experience he had and the way he communicated that into me. So there was a learning process from day one, and I learned very fast because that's what you have to do abroad.
You have to do that to adjust, and you've done that through all your career, adjusting. And I identify a lot with your career because I had the same thing. I remember we lost to Swindon. We lost 5-1 or 5-0 to Liverpool, and I had a divish action, and Neil Ruddock, racer, the big defender at Liverpool, he came over to me and said, "You don't never fucking do that again. You don't do that in this fucking football." And I tried to stay away from it. Fast forward in your football career, you're at different clubs. We met each other in a very key game for me in Germany, where you play for Kaiserslautern under Otto Rehhagel. I played for Eintracht Frankfurt in that 5-1 game. You could have gone into Champions League. We had to save over play, so we were in different places. But at the end, we met up, and I remember that day because we were in a training camp, how life is, and you kind of develop without knowing each other. You came to West Norway, to Lillestrøm. We were remember we have that training camp somewhere with some cottages, and suddenly Uwe Rösler appeared. And of course, I didn't know you, but I knew you as a player, of course. And suddenly, at the end of your career, you ended up in Lillestrøm, and I will dwell a bit with that because it's a Richtungweisen, it's the direction of the rest of your career, because then suddenly you have a great spell as a player at Lillestrøm.
Yeah, I think my wife is Norwegian. I met her in Manchester, so we married some years later. And like I said, after my time in Manchester City, I had the opportunity to go to Kaiserslautern, and Kaiserslautern were German champion in the Bundesliga. And I always felt I had to still prove something to myself to also do it in the Bundesliga. And Kaiserslautern was a top team. They gave me a great opportunity with players like Girargos, Sforza, Olaf Marschall, Ballack. I had great players there, and I played a very good year. They got me on a free transfer, and had 12 months later sold me for 3.5 million. So that was a big profit. I really enjoyed my time in Kaiserslautern. And then I stayed for a couple of clubs more in Germany, but then I came to the end of my career, and my wife was following me for 8-9 years, and I felt in the end of my career was also time to give her something back. Especially we had a young son was just born, and I went over to Lillestrøm, to the trip you just mentioned, to the West Coast, and I said I have to see it first. I cannot commit to something what I don't know. So and then flew in, and the team was already on the West Coast, and the team was out for dinner somewhere, and I arrived. There was barakke. That was like where the road workers was living.
And you're not overdoing that. It's actually it was what it was.
And then I arrived very late, and I was thinking, well, with myself. I walked around, and there was a little lake, and I was sitting there and called my wife, and I said, "What I'm doing here?" So, and then she said, give it a chance, give it a chance." So next day, the first thing what I saw was you. That was good because we know each other. You and Gunnar Halle were also two of my best friends, and so then the integration was very easy. We had the game, and I really liked the type of football what had been played at that time in Norway. Was quite physical, was direct, was I was very familiar with the way with that way of football from England, and I could see myself dominating defenders, continuously dominating defenders, and this is for me that gave me always a big pleasure in my way of play, and then I committed, and yeah, my wife was very, very happy, and this is why we ended up in Norway.
And you turn into a cult hero at Lillestrøm, at Åråsen. For those of you who don't know that, Lillestrøm is a club just outside Oslo, and has developed a lot of players during their history, and a lot of them go into professional football. I was one of them, and I was at the end of my career. I remember I had a contract saying that I shouldn't play away games because I worked on TV. So it was the coach then, Arne Erlandsen, who said, "Please, Jan, can you come in? I have a young team. I want you to have you around." And you will turn into not only a cult hero, but I think that without knowing it, you were Lillestrøm all your career, because Lillestrøm was a hard-working club. There were no mercy, take no prisoners, and you won them over very straight. And then I retired from my career, and Uwe, we have to dwell a bit about what happened then before the next season. I remember I was on a ski trip in Hafjell. I always remember that. I saw you called. And you called me and said, "Jan, it's terrible. I've got terrible news. They discovered cancer, and that's why I was struggling." I remember you were saying we were struggling in games. Talk us a bit through that moment when you were told that you were very ill.
Yeah, I think I played that half a year from summer till the end of the season. When I arrived successfully, then I had a winter break. Then preseason started in Norway, like you know, is a very long preseason. And at that time, we didn't have indoor facilities or artificial pitches. We did it on cruise by minus 18 degrees. What was in my age of 34, that was a big challenge. and but you have to give Erna Erlandsen compliment, because I've never been that fit, because the preseason was like 2.5 months or something, and I was really fit, but in the end of the preseason, just before the season starts in April, I felt unwell, breathing problems, and I felt I was not able to play. Arne Erlandsen convinced me to play. I played the first game. I couldn't perform, but I scored a goal. I scored a winner. We beat Bodø Glimt home 1-0, and after that I went straight into hospital because I felt really unwell. And they discovered a tumor in front of my lungs, and I needed to start treatment immediately. 2 days later, and I didn't have a high percentage of survival. But the treatment, the tumor responded to the treatment really well, and then my survival chances increased by the day. And I made a good recovery, strong recovery. To being an athlete over so many years helped me, because I went to very hard treatment at the time. And I would like to mention something, because we are just experienced something tragically. with Jota, Diego Jota, and the support, unbelievable support Liverpool Football Club give it to the family of the player. I have to mention Lillestrøm. Per Mathisen, the former president of the football club, supported me also because my career was factually finished, and I had 1 year left on my contract. And Per Mathisen supported myself and my family through that 12 months and paid me my wages, and I will never forget that. And that was the loyalty and also the feelings I had grown to this football club, and this is what made me later, after my recovery, so proud to be a coach for that football club. And I think Lillestrøm will always be, like Manchester City, will always be a special club in my heart.
And you were a special person in the heart of all the Lillestrøm fans. And I remember in that process, and I will make that bridge into your coaching, because at the same time, I was talking to the club of becoming head of sport, or doing their share company, CEO of the share company, head of sport. And I remember we were sitting in you were isolated from people. We were sitting there talking about how it would be maybe one time in the future we could run a football club, and how coincidences go. The first guy I hired was a guy called Uwe Rösler. You had recovered, you had used your attitude and your discipline to come back, and then your first club was Lillestrøm Sports Club. And I remember, Uwe, I mean, we had 6 months before it was published that you were going to be the coach, and the 6 months before you took over. And I remember that time you were so impatient to start, because you had so many ideas, you had so many things you wanted to do, and I guess that is a very credit to yourself, Uwe. And I think maybe that first season we had together there was minus £2 million that we had to sort out. We had no players on contract, and we put together a team. This is in 2005. We put together a team, and we lost the cup final, where we got to the cup final, 4th place in the league. And I think for both of us, I feel that's one of the greatest achievements we've done.
Yeah, I think that was the club was in the stage where to give somebody like us, because you was quite new in your job, I was completely new in my job. There was an opportunity because of also the circumstances. But coming back to what you just said about, for me was therapy when I was in the hospital and went through all those chemotherapies and radiation therapies, to always think forward. And I realized very fast that my playing time is over. And so what comes next? So for me it was clear, my coaching batches, I did that in that 1.5 years or 1 year. And but for me it was already planning. Planning is everything for me, and also brainstorming, and probably sometimes too much. So I was so excited about the opportunity that to be a coach at some point. I always felt I will be a coach over many years before that, but that has come so quick. That was not planned. But then with Gunnar Halle, my assistant, you and me, we were 3 people. We know each other really well. We came in the club. We all have a history, and I think the club was in a position where they have not been on the top of Norwegian football for many years. So there was a very good starting point for our experience, for our connections, for our hard work to improve the club straight away, and that's exactly what we did.
As we're speaking, you just ended a good spell in Aarhus in Denmark, but you have had 10 clubs. And the reason I would like to name all the clubs, because I think that is a testament to your football life, not only in which countries, but also the great names that are in there and the success you've had in different clubs. Lillestrøm, then Viking, Molde, before Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came there, Brentford, Wigan, Leeds United, my favorite growing up as a kid, Fleetwood Town, Malmö, Fortuna Düsseldorf, and now AGF. And I must say, will ask you a serious question soon, but I will just tell the viewers our relationship, because when you took over Leeds United, and I grew up as a Leeds United supporter, I called you, first of all, congratulated you, and I have played against Leeds, I have scored against Leeds, but still, I couldn't tell anybody that I support the Leeds, because I played for Barnsley, local rival, Sheffield United, local rival, Middlesbrough, like local rival. So I tell you, Uwe, I will come to see you at Leeds, because I want to go in the corridors. I want to see the statues of Billy Bremner. I just want to be a fan going around. And I say, and you asked me, so when are you coming? And I said, I will come in. I'm coming 2 weeks. And I said, and you said, for fuck's sake, Jan, it's the pre-season. And I say, yeah, we'll probably be fired in September. And the reason I told you about that is that the coaching life, and especially at Leeds at that time, a owner, a head of things. It's a very risky business, and you were fired then, but I mean, everybody got fired at Leeds United at that time. Every of the coaches are sometimes fired. But the thing is, the serious question I want to ask you, Uwe, is that when you now just left your job in Denmark, and when you started in Lillestrøm in 2005, how has your philosophy changed as a coach, as a manager?
Oh, you asked so many questions in one question. So coming back to Leeds, where you started off, Maximo Cellino, the owner and the chairman at the time, he has probably the world record in hiring and firing coaches. As a well-known owner also in Italian football, he now just got pressure, relegated financially. Before I came to Leeds, he had in 18 months, he had 5 coaches. So and then he offered me the job, and I was thinking, you know what, I know how that will end. At that point, I was already at 10 years behind me as a coach, but you know what? Nobody can take away to being the manager of Leeds United.
Exactly.
And what I was attracted on was they had a very good group of young players. There was one group of young players with players like Byron, Mord, Cook, played for England, Charlie Taylor, played for Blackburn, Premier League. Phillips played for Manchester City, who I played with 18 regular. So that's 5, 6, 7 players who were 18, 19, 20, 21, English, energetic. And then you had on the other side, you had Serie C and B players in Italy, 5 or 6 players who smoked at the morning at the breakfast and didn't want to train, and I was thinking, okay, going in, I'm now the manager. I picked the team, and this is what I did. I picked the young players, and I was very excited to work with them because they were so hungry and so gifted, but they needed a little bit of time. And from all my clubs, that was the only club I didn't improve them in the first year. I took them over on number 17 or 18, and I give them back on number 17. So, but to have players like this going through my hands and giving them playing time, I've been really, really proud of, and also the fact that coaching and managing in Ellen Road is something special. This atmosphere is something different, and that was a great experience. And over time, obviously, everything have changed. I've been now 21 years coach. Society have changed. I was privileged, or I was not afraid to take challenges on coaching in different countries, ask for different questions. Culture-wise, culture, football culture, also society culture, so many different things. I think that formed me as a person, but that formed me as a coach as well. What works in one country maybe not work in a different country. So you find different tools. You have to have the ability to listen. You have to have the ability to see the problems immediately. Because apart from Malmö, I always inherited teams who was deeply in trouble. So and everyone was looking at me for answers. And this is why I said, apart from Leeds, I improved every team immediately. And because this is ability I formed because I've been in so many different clubs under different circumstances. And my leadership is hart aber herzlich. I think it's very important that players always wants to know why I'm playing or why I'm not playing. Obviously, those experience over all those years as a coach, that definitely improves you as a leader, improves you as a person. I always find that players always want to know why I'm playing, why I'm not playing. And I think my philosophy and leadership is a lot about never shy away from a talk, never shy away from a meeting. Be honest. I think sometimes people find it harder now, these generations now, to sit with the coach in a one-to-one meeting, and because I do it most of the time individually. Than at our times, I think the way you communicate these days has to be different than it was for 20 years ago. And you have to also learn from the younger generation. I think that's very important when you surround yourself with young people, that keeps you also young. So, and I think that also smoothing you up, rounding you up a little bit in my personality, because the way I'm communicating today to the players or to the leaders is obviously different than for 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago. But I think one thing is absolutely clear: you have to be honest to people, and you cannot shy away from an uncomfortable conversation. And I think that is probably for me how I deal with upwards, with the boardroom, with the leaders, but also downwards with the players and the staff. So because I think it's very important that you be yourself and the best version of yourself, and you have to look after yourself in order to find the energy to do that every single day. The demands on the players, the demands on the coaches, the time you have spent in terms of preparation and executing game plans increased enormously. And 3 years now in AGF is quite long, considering that I was the second longest coach in Danish football in this period. But I think it's also a good time now for me to recharge my batteries to go again, because I love coaching. I'm passionate about coaching. I'm passionate to win. I'm passionate to improve people on the pitch and off the pitch, and to give my knowledge further.
And I think that is good last words on your philosophy, Uwe, and I can just underline it. As been working with you for 2 years, and we're working and have a friendship for many, many years. You're very passionate about your football. You're very passionate to improve players, and I think that is the biggest testament a coach could have, is if you go into a club and make the club better in an insecure business. And as you were saying, the last 3 years in Denmark, and I think that is a good advice to recharge a bit and then come back, because as you were saying, when I was going through the 10 clubs, you'd done them all better. And it's always funny when we worked also on TV together and see the commitment you having when I'm sitting there trying to make out deals to get Erling Haaland to an interview or talk with Dortmund, and you are 3-5-2, and you did you see the overlap? Did you see? And I say, yes, Uwe, but you're so into football, and that is a great skill. So at the end, Uwe, I would like to challenge you on some quick fire, quick questions. And the first thing that you can think a bit, but not a lot. So straight questions. I put on my glasses, then you know it's serious. So, favorite player growing up?
Wolfgang Steinbach.
You have to explain who.
Former international player for East Germany. Central midfield player in Magdeburg, where I got my breakthrough. And he basically was the playmaker, and he said, "Forrest, run." and I was running, and he delivered touchdown, goal.
Okay, brilliant. Toughest opposition player?
Karl-Heinz Förster.
Oh, he was terrible, wasn't he?
He was
Mandeka.
a former VfB Stuttgart captain, won the championship, and later on played for Olympique Marseille. I think he won the Champions League. I didn't look forward to play against him.
Teammate that most impressed you in the different clubs you played?
Teammate who most impressed me, Paul Walsh.
Paul Walsh, your partner.
My partner. I think there was. I talk as a coach today a lot about relations, and I think the coaching gone a little bit away from relations. They gone a little bit more to PlayStation football, and I talk about relations because in the end, for me, coaches are there to help players and to set a game plan up, but in the end, it's always about players on the pitch. The players play the game, not the coaches. And I think in terms of relations, I had a natural relationship, the best relationship I had as a striker with Paul Walsh, because we didn't have much time. We came in a very difficult situation. The team was struggling in Manchester City. We came at the same time. I remember the first two games we played Sheffield United and Wimbledon. We ran in each other. We didn't connect. We were just got bullied by Vinnie Jones and all those guys, and we were thinking where we go from here. And then certainly was clicking, and then was like simple communication between us on a daily basis, how we can make each other better, how we can make each other and the team better by scoring more goals. And I think that was the most natural development I ever had with a striking partner.
Favorite football moment as player?
Must be my first match for Lokomotiv Leipzig. I think it was against Olympique Marseille, and scoring a hat-trick in the Champions League for Kaiserslautern.
Yeah, I can understand that. A Champions League hat-trick. Favorite football moment as a manager, coach?
Yeah, there is good ones and bad ones, but obviously beating Manchester City at the Etihad with championship team Wigan Athletic in the season where Manchester City has not lost one game home, and under Pellegrini, and do win there 2-1, and going into the FA Cup semi-final. There was something special, yeah.
What one skill you wish you had as a player?
Patience.
Good answer. I think we both could say that word. Who is the most talented player you have played with or against?
I think Georgi Kinkladze was probably the most technically gifted player I ever played with. But we find it hard at the time to the coaches, Ellen Ball at the time, we find it hard to find a way for the team to bring in Jordi's extraordinary capacity with the ball in, and that everyone else is on the same wavelength. But in technically, skill-wise, he was the best player. Played with Ballack at Kaiserslautern together. Ballack just rising up to the top, just got his first 2 years Bundesliga football under his belt before he moved to Leverkusen. You could already see the extraordinary qualities he had with the ball, but also without the ball. And he always was looking to scoring goals, and that's what he did all his life. So there are some very good and very interesting names for you.
Best player you have ever coached?
Markus Rosenberg.
Striker for Malmö?
Yeah. He played 7 years in the Bundesliga for Werder Bremen. He played in Serie A. He played in La Liga. He played in the Premier League. So icon in Malmö. He was my captain, number 9. I had him in the end of career. He ended his career when I was the coach. we had a fantastic relationship. He was the captain as well. But the way he was phenomenal, aura about him on the pitch, in the dressing room. He knew exactly what he had to do in certain situations. He couldn't go out every game. But in Swedish football, when you play for Malmö, you don't need to go out every home game. Every league game. But when it came to Europe, the floodlights was on. He was something different, and the way he ended his career, that was symbolic for his career. We played Dynamo Kiev home. That was his last home game, and we won 3-2. And as a consequence of that, with the later result against Copenhagen, it was the first time we qualified ourselves for the knockout stages in the history of the football club. And he scored 2 goals in his last home game. And the game was 9:00. The game was finished something 11. And then afterwards was his last home game. The whole stadium stayed on the Thursday night. And it was freezing cold. Stayed till 12:00 and give him a goodbye, give him a goodbye on the pitch, the whole stadium. That was something I never saw before.
And then this is one I'm struggling with always. The best manager you ever had in your career?
Otto Rehhagel.
Ah, yeah, of course. It's easy for you. You have an Otto Rehhagel, the legendary, won the European Championship with Greece, won with Kaiserslautern, the Bundesliga after he got promoted. Otto Rehhagel, why was he so special?
Because he didn't make things complicated. He knew it was about the football at that time was also a lot about recruitment. Recruit players who made the team better, not always the best player on papers, players who made the team better, build good relations on the pitch and off the pitch, treat the players who maybe not starting every game, spend more time on number 12 to number 18 than you spend on number 1 to number 11. Being helpful, guiding people, helping people, but also be ruthless and tough when it's needed. He had the perfect combination, and I'm privileged to play under him for 1 year. That was probably also one of my most enjoyable years in Kaiserslautern.
So, last question. You're gonna host a fantasy dinner, okay? It's a football dinner, and you're gonna have 3 guests, plus yourself, 3 guests. You can choose by every legend in the world that you want to talk with, people who is alive today or people who are deceased or dead. So who are these 3 legends?
Diego Maradona.
Okay.
Otto Rehhagel. Third one.
It's a very privileged dinner. So you have Diego Maradona. He will probably come a bit late. He will bring different stuff with him that he will go into different rooms to consume. Otto Rehhagel will sit there with Beate, wahrscheinlich, in car waiting for him, his wife. But you need a third legend.
Colin Bell.
Colin Bell. Manchester City legend. You have named your 2 sons after Colin Bell and Tony Book, 2 Manchester City legends. So your fantasy dinner, Uwe is cooking something East German. What would you cook? What would you give them? Colin, Otto, and Diego.
I'm not cooking.
Will it be takeaway?
No, I think I can afford somebody to come in and do a nice dinner for us. So, but I'm not a very good cook. I have to say that.
Oh, let's put it this way. I think that dinner won't be about the food and the drink. It will be about the conversation. Uwe, it's been a pleasure talking to you as always, and go through your football career. You have a fantastic life on and off the pitch, and on and off the bench, and on the pitch, as well as a player, as a manager. And I'm sure at one time you will recharge your battery now, and then you will be back in business. Thank you for being with us.